Hey everyone, what's up? You know, everybody's been doing something like this recently, and I figured, might as well throw my 2 cents in there, if you will. Everybody's been talking about, kind of reviewing and talking about WrestleManias of the past. And, for me, I'm not going to be somebody that's going to review all the WrestleManias, in a row. No. Instead, I'm just going to review certain ones that I feel stuck out in my mind. Um, some WrestleManias that were good, some that were memorable and stuff like that. But of course, we can't. But of course, I'm sure anybody would agree you can't start a WrestleMania review um, without talking about the very first WrestleMania. And the very first WrestleMania, let's face it, a lot of people have said it wasn't the best, but you got to give it basically an A double plus for effort. I mean, here's what I mean. What I mean is, when you take a look at it, nowadays you would consider that first WrestleMania card, those first matches, to be nothing more, than just the kind of matches you would probably see on a SmackDown or a Monday Night Raw, or even the kind of matches you would see at one of the what is now what people consider the B-level pay-per-views, like Vengeance and No Way Out and Money in the Bank. These are the kind of matches a lot of people feel you would see there at those kind of pay-per-views. But for the first WrestleMania, you got to give them credit. They did the best they could. You know, I mean, they did such a huge crossover for this Mania. It's not funny. I mean, outlets like CBS This Morning, ABC's Good Morning America, NBC Today, newspapers like the New York Post, the Chicago Tribune, the San Francisco Tribune, the Daily Review, the Oakland Tribune, actually San Francisco Chronicle, I'm sorry, USA Today, they all were talking about WrestleMania. Nobody was, I mean, they had other news sources they were talking about, but the one thing that stuck out in their minds was WrestleMania. One of the topics that they were talking about the most was Mania, because of the crossover into other media that it was doing. For example, one of the main attractions of Mania 1, one of the main attractions was the fact that you had Mr. T. Mr. T, who is believe it or not, a hot commodity at the time, crossing over into professional wrestling. A guy that made his name for himself in Rocky 3 was making a bigger name for himself with the show The A-Team, and here he was crossing over into professional wrestling because of a sort of what would be considered like a Twitter feud, a feud of words with Roddy Piper. And then you throw in the fact that also at the time Piper had a rivalry going on camera and in the ring with Hogan, along with Hogan's rivalry with Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And then you add in, I guess, a little bit of a feud between Snooker and Orton, and Bob Orton being in both corners. I mean, you had the makings of something big, something successful, and that's what it was. It was a successful venture for them going into this. Now, what some people don't know and realize, and this is somewhat of a truth, is that according to David Crockett, the Crockett family, because of the fact that they had to buy back their time slot from Vince McMahon in the WWE, they had to buy back the Saturday night time slot. They, in a sense, as they put it, paid for most of WrestleMania. They're the ones that, because of the money they gave to McMahon, essentially paid for the inaugural WrestleMania. So, with that being said, a lot of people would say that's impossible. Well, it's not impossible if you watch the rise and fall of WCW DVD set. It's not impossible. Now, here's the other thing about WrestleMania that nobody realizes, and nobody even considers. Hogan T versus Orndorff and Piper was not the only main event. The other main event was probably the only time in WWE, WWF history, the only time in this company's history that the Women's Championship shared a similar spotlight with the main event. What I'm talking about is the Women's Championship between Wendy Richter and Leilani Kai with Moolah and Laufer in both corners was just as big and just as important as the main event itself. As a matter of fact, you had two separate wrestling events aired on MTV. And in both of these events, you had separate main event matches focused on and aired. Hogan and Piper's was aired. And I think before or after that, Richter and Leilani Kai's match was aired. And these were the matches. These were the main events that both shows on MTV were focused on because of the crossover appeal. So when you think about that, so when you look back on that, you have to think and realize that this was the only time that the Women's Championship / Ladies Championship / Divas Championship was on the same level and basically highlighted as a co-main event. Because when you think about it, Wendy Richter, despite her differences with WWE at times, was basically at that time, during her initial run with the company, and this is crazy to say, she was like the Hulk Hogan. She was like the John Cena, the Steve Austin, the Bret Hart of that division. She was like the Trish Stratus and Lita of that year, of that era. That's how big she was. And that's no lie. That's not a lie. That's all true. And everybody would consider that. And then when you have her associate with Cyndi Lauper and put them in a co-main event match at Mania, your inaugural Mania, where the opponents are Leilani Kai and Fabulous Moolah, who was the longest reigning women's champion in history, and still holds that record, even though, God rest her soul, she's up above. The thing is, you add all those combustible elements together, along with that tag team main event, and you had, again, the formula and the recipe for a successful Mania, despite how some of the other matches were. I mean, yeah, you kicked off the inaugural WrestleMania with the very first match ever being, like I said, a match you would normally see, let's say, on Raw, or nowadays on Superstars, or maybe even NXT, when you had Tito Santana take on the Executioner. And we're not talking the same Executioner from the 90s. We're talking a different Executioner. I mean, you had that. Then, of course, you add in the fact that you had Bundy in record time beat Special Delivery Jones. You know, again, these are the kind of things you would normally see on Raw or SmackDown. Bundy, basically, when he squashed Jones, was kind of put in a position like sort of like what Brodus Clay is right now. Basically, you take an enhancement talent, put him in against somebody you want to push, either as a face or a heel, and you let him squash him. And if you take that person and say, you know what, let's have him run over this person at our inaugural Mania and see what happens, our inaugural show, the show as we call it, our Super Bowl, and see what happens, then that's saying something about that person. The question is, will they do it this year? In some ways, we don't know. We don't know. But the thing is, it was memorable. And that is saying something. That, my friend, is saying something. And then, of course, you know, being a kid, I didn't know about, I mean, I knew about it, but I just didn't, you know, I didn't watch it or anything, nor do I even remember it that well until I saw it on VHS. I bought the VHS at Hastings when WWF at the time re-released them as an anthology set and individually. I watched it. I watched WrestleMania 1. And it was good. I mean, I didn't know at the time that the Intercontinental Champion was Greg Valentine. Nor did I know, I don't know who that is outside, but nor did I know that Rotundo and Wyndham were the tag champs. I didn't know that. The only thing I knew of was Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling that came out later that year. That's all I knew of. I didn't know of anything else. But the fact that even despite the fact that you had those kind of matches, despite the fact that you had people holding championships that looked very different back in that day, back in that time, that today, let's say the tag titles, many people are considering are not even that important anymore. And you had the Intercontinental title that seems to be getting a little bit more importance again. Being defended the way they were, it's like, you know, you never expected that to happen. You never expected to see something like that occur, and yet it did. Which I thought was pretty good. Which I thought was pretty cool. And the only title change besides Wendy winning the women's championship that occurred, was Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov becoming tag team champions over the US Express. I mean, that's it. And the managers you had at the time as well was like, you had Freddie Blassie, you had Bobby Heenan, you had Jimmy Hart, and you had the Grand Wizard. I mean, what a lineup. What a lineup. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything else. And then, like I said, the crossover celebrity powers that they had, that crossover power with celebrities that they had, I mean, Liberace, Billy Martin, you know, the Rockettes, Muhammad Ali as a guest referee, who legitimately wanted to fight Orton and Piper and Orndorff. You know, you have them. I mean, you talk about star power. You talk about power that goes beyond what you would normally expect. This WrestleMania, despite how you feel about its card, overall, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 or 3 matches, was the, like I said at the beginning, was an A double plus for effort. I know some people will feel differently about it, but you got to agree, for effort, an A double plus is saying something. An A double plus is like saying they did the best they could. They did what nobody else could. They did what people said they couldn't do, and they succeeded. And that's what happened. They succeeded. Nobody thought they would succeed, yet they succeeded. They succeeded. And they went on to do some other WrestleManias. I mean, the following year, Vince McMahon tries to be innovative again. And how does he become innovative? By going not with 1, not with 2, but 3 venues. The 3 venues in separate parts of the United States. One on the West Coast, right here on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, and one in the Midwest. And where do you have them? Where did he have these WrestleManias at for WrestleMania 2? Where did he have them? He had them in the hot spots for professional wrestling and entertainment. Los Angeles, here on the West Coast. New York, East Coast. Chicago, Midwest. These were hot spots of wrestling and entertainment. And then when you take a look at some of the celebrities they had, Elvira, Ray Charles. I think they had Mary Hart for one of her first 2 appearances at a Mania. The list can go on. And some of the matches they had were were unique in their own style. With main events, I mean, they had 3 different main events highlighting each venue. Hogan and Bundy highlighted the Los Angeles venue with a steel cage match for the title, which Hogan won. Piper, Mr. T boxing match that didn't last too long, highlighted New York and the Nassau Coliseum. NFL, WWF Battle Royal. NFL players and WWF superstars Battle Royal, won by Andre, highlighted Chicago because that year was also the year Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl. I mean, what more can you say about it? What more can you say about how WrestleMania 1 was a success despite its card? And what more can you say about the fact that the following year they tried to be even more innovative with the second one? And if you think that's something, you just wait till I talk about 3. 3 was the one that set the standard. Believe you me. You know, when I ended the first part of this, I talked about how, you know, WrestleMania 1 is sort of like an A++, gets an A++ for effort, right? Well, so does, believe it or not, so did WrestleMania 2 for its innovation for having WrestleMania in 3 different venues in the 3 most popular areas of the United States. The West Coast, East Coast, and the Midwest. Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. Each with their own main events. But the WrestleMania to me that set the standard, besides the first WrestleMania, but the WrestleMania to me that set the standard for how big a WrestleMania can be, how packed a WrestleMania can be, and how much built each match, even if it's a short build, or even if it's a match that's been built for over a year or years. The WrestleMania to me that set that standard was this one. WrestleMania 3. And when you take a look at the back of this, take a look at the lineup, you had literally, I don't know if you could read that, you had literally a whole list of matches. You had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 matches. Nowadays, according to a lot of people, you'd be lucky to get what we're going to probably get at this year's Mania, 8 matches. But literally, 12 matches right here in one WrestleMania. And each, as the Sleg Daddy and Tasteless Tony T pointed out in their WrestleMania 3 review, each had a feud, or each had a meaning. Each even had an interview at some time. Well, not each, but every now and then, one of the matches out of the 12 had an interview before and after. But all those were leading up to this. And I think the 2 names down here say it best. Hogan, Andre. You see, Andre, on record, had been undefeated for most of his career. No one had been able to slam him, you know, publicly, if you will, nationally or well-known wise. I mean, nowadays you find out that Hogan wasn't the only one to slam him. You've had guys like Kamala slam him, and some other few people, but never like on a national, worldwide level where everybody got to see it and everybody still talks about it. And especially, you never did it in front of almost 94,000 people. 94,000 almost, near 94,000 people. An indoor attendance record that I know to this day, Vince McMahon himself, and anybody would agree with this, is looking forward to breaking in the next few years. It's true. I mean, he wanted next year's WrestleMania to be at Cowboy Stadium, the new Cowboy Stadium. Can't happen Because Cowboy Stadium for that year and the following year is occupied by the NCAA tournament in some ways. So basically, he's got WrestleMania 31 to look at and say, you know what? This is where it's going to happen. It's going to happen here. WrestleMania 31, 31 years later, is going to occur here. Now, if he is fortunate enough to get Cowboy Stadium for the 30th WrestleMania, that would be something in its own right. But the thing is, we don't know that. We don't know if he'll get WrestleMania in that area. I mean, we're surprised he's got WrestleMania at MetLife Stadium next year. Where's he going to have it the following year? Nobody really knows. People are as curious as anything. But I know, and like I said, I know, and everybody else knows, he wants to break that attendance record. And it's true, he does. Because again, you have the Pontiac Silverdome on March 29th of 1987 breaking an indoor attendance record of 93 to almost 94,000 people. More people than a Rolling Stones concert and the Pope being in that same building combined, if you will. I mean, that's saying something. And, you know, a lot of people will say, well, the main reason was because they wanted to see Hogan Andre, and that might have been it. And one of the and you know, what's unique about this is that just like everybody has pointed out, whether it's the Off the Rope show, the British Fist, you know, Jeff Meacham and Renegade Wrestling, no DQ, doesn't matter. You know, anybody that does a WrestleMania review of any of the WrestleManias, they will agree that when this WrestleMania took place, this WrestleMania took place at a time, folks, when there was no Raw, there was no SmackDown, there was no NXT. The only things you had was the original superstars, and I think the beginnings of Wrestling Challenge, and I think the All-American Wrestling on USA. And that was it. You had two wrestling shows people could see in syndication, which I think helped the most. And you had another show, or two, or three, whatever, on USA on cable television, which most people did get, but some didn't. But what was also unique about this is this was also the first WrestleMania to be broadcast on pay-per-view. But it's also the only WrestleMania to be broadcast on pay-per-view and closed-circuit TV. You see, pay-per-view, despite what it was called back then, Viewer's Choice, Request TV, whatever, was a really a new thing for WWE. Yeah, a lot of people, you go look at the Starrcade collection, if you will, or the Rise and Fall of WCW set, and those people will say that they were thinking about pay-per-view before Vince was, and maybe they were. But pay-per-view, even back from 83 up to 87, was still a new thing for a lot of people. Wrestling in general. It was a new thing, especially going live. Especially doing a live event, it was a new thing. So they couldn't really figure out what to do or how to use it. And that's why I think Vince McMahon and the WWE didn't hurry as fast as they could, or they should, as people thought they should, to get WrestleMania on pay-per-view. They wanted to wait. They wanted to test the waters. And the way they tested the waters was through the closed circuit deal at arenas and theaters. I mean, I would have loved, if I had known about these WrestleManias back as a kid, I would have loved to go to whatever closed venue, theater, or arena as a kid and see it. But like anybody else, I had to wait to VHS and then later on DVD. But the thing is, the fact still stands that this was the first WrestleMania and the only WrestleMania to do both pay-per-view and closed-circuit TV. And the fact is, like everybody's pointed out, that has review number 3 has basically said pay-per-view was basically a new thing at the time for them doing this. I mean, after 2 successful WrestleManias through closed circuit, yeah, the next step was pay-per-view. But again, the fact is they still were doing closed circuit just in case the pay-per-view thing didn't work out. Now, again, this WrestleMania to me set the standard of how a WrestleMania, match-wise, from top to bottom, match card-wise, should be built. Even if a match that's on the card has a little bit of a feud, or a little bit of build-up, maybe a few weeks worth, at least it has built. I mean, look, Can-Am Connection against Morocco and Orton may have had a little bit of a build, maybe it was just thrown on there, or maybe just thrown on there to give them something to do. Because nowadays, a match like this, the Can-Am Connection, against a team like Morocco and Orton, nowadays, it's like I said about one. It'd probably be on a Raw or SmackDown, or nowadays, it'd probably be a dark match, a pre-WrestleMania dark match. That's what it would be. That's what it would be. Same with the Killer Bees against Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. That would probably be a pre-WrestleMania dark match. But back in the day, these weren't considered dark matches. They were considered well enough and good enough to be part of the actual pay-per-view card, and they were. I mean, you had the Rougeaus against the Dream Team. Yeah, that might have been probably one of the few that was, nowadays, would probably be worthy of being on the card. But 12 matches in all, folks, 12 matches. And all done within, what, 3 hours? Nowadays, WrestleMania is advertised for almost 4 hours. And that's just not just because of the matches, it's also because of the celebrities you have performing. The musicians, the artists. I mean, you got Machine Gun Kelly performing this year at WrestleMania, John Cena's theme song, from what we understand. We don't know who's going to do America the Beautiful. We don't know who else is going to show up, but we do know it's going to be another 4 hours. Now, some of the matches may take up a majority of that time. I mean, the 12-man tag may take up a majority, because of its importance, I guess you could say. Rock and Cena, Punk and Jericho, you know, Undertaker, Triple H, Hell in a Cell. You know, some of these matches will take time, there's no doubt about it. But the thing is, right now, as of tonight, it's 8 matches, officially. If they add 2 more, that's great. But right now, it's officially 8 matches as of tonight. When you watch SmackDown, if you read the spoilers, you'll know. But it'll be 8 matches as of tonight. Because as we found out over this past week, the Divas will have a match at WrestleMania, a Divas tag team match. It'll be Kelly and Maria Menounos against Beth Phoenix and Eve. And just to think, what, 2 years ago? Or a year ago, whatever. Or 2 years ago, actually, Kelly, Beth, and Eve were all on the same side. Now look at them. But anyway, getting back to what I'm saying, that has a little, even that has some build, has some meaning behind it. I mean, Beth and Maria's situation, Kelly and Eve's situation, that has a little bit of story behind it too. Give them credit for that. At least they have a Divas match that's being put on there that has some fucking stories behind it. And it just proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that if this can do it, it seems this year's is going to do the same thing that this one did, except this one has 4 more matches than that one did. I mean, when you think about it, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how well a WrestleMania can be built. And you take a look at how the blueprints of WrestleMania 1 showed you how it can be done, how you can hype it up and everything, what kind of matches you can put on there. But when you really want to set a standard and really show how big and how important Orton a WrestleMania can be and how serious you want people to take it, number 3 set that standard, and it's a standard that I believe has not yet been broken. This year's could do it, but I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it. But this set the standard that still stands to this day of how good a WrestleMania can be. From top to bottom when it comes to the matches on the card, to how hyped up it is, how built up it is, how you can get people's attention. That's what makes this so good. This is what makes this the standard. I mean, heck, you have a second disc featuring WrestleMania 3 on this thing, which is more of like a pop-up deal where you have people talking about their experiences at that event. And again, this set the standard. This is the standard bearer of how WrestleMania should be. Now the question is, will they live up to that standard this year or in future years to come? I hope they do. I hope someday we get a WrestleMania, this year maybe, maybe not, or sometime down the line, that surpasses this one. Because I know Vince McMahon wants this to get surpassed. I know his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, wants the same thing. I know his son-in-law, Triple H, would like it. They would love to surpass this and set a new standard when it comes to WrestleMania. But the question is, can and will they? That's the question everybody's wondering. Can and will they? We don't know. We don't know if it can be done. Because that's how good WrestleMania 3 was. But you know what? For the few years that led up to, after that, at least they did have some WrestleManias that were built up like it. I mean, the following year, most of WrestleMania 4 was a tournament night. Was a tournament. There was a few matches that weren't, but most of it was a tournament. With the winner at the end of the night becoming WWE Champion. And who did won at the night? Macho Man Randy Savage. He won the tournament. He won the tournament. Yeah, it was probably in one of the smaller venues they've ever been in. Probably one of the smallest, probably the smallest they've ever had a WrestleMania in. Maybe I'm wrong. But yet, it still had some built, because the story behind the reason for that tournament, WrestleMania 4, was due to the fact that the $1 Million Man, who was getting a huge push at the time, tried to buy the championship off of Andre by using a crooked referee, if you will, to do a fast count out on Hogan, even though Hogan's shoulder was up, and then have Andre sell the title to the $1 Million Man, basically stating that the $1 Million Man, being built up and being pushed as this cocky, arrogant son of a gun, felt, hey, I don't need to wrestle and earn my way to a WWE Championship match. I could just have the belt handed to me on a silver platter by buying it. And that was the story behind that tournament, because of that. It was because of that. I mean, that shows you how well built a WrestleMania can be. How well built it can be. Even a tournament, even with a tournament, it can be built well. And again, that is how a WrestleMania should be. This here set the standard for 4. 4, to me, in my opinion, successfully followed with the tournament. 5 was kind of up in the air except for the main event. 6, to me, was okay. 6 and 7, I think, still followed the pattern of 3. 8, yeah, it was alright. But the thing is, to me, WrestleMania set that standard that is yet to be surpassed. And I think everybody in the WWE knows that. Anybody in the higher-ups in Stamford, Connecticut, they know it. Vince McMahon, Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, even Shane McMahon, who's no longer with the company, he knows it. Even Linda McMahon, who's running for Senate, she knows it. They know that the overall goal for that company is to surpass this WrestleMania with a newer WrestleMania. Is to take a future WrestleMania and surpass that one with it. But the thing is, are they going to do it this year at 28, or are they going to do it in the future? Because I know one of the ways McMahon wants this to get surpassed is by breaking the attendance record. That's what he wants. He wants the WrestleMania 3 attendance indoor record to be broken. And the only chance he has of doing that is booking the damn event at Cowboy Stadium here in the United States. That's the only chance he's got. It's the only chance he's got. Unless he goes out of state, out of country, and probably goes to Wembley Stadium if it's still standing and does it there. But the only chance he has is WrestleMania being at Cowboy Stadium. That's the only chance he'll ever have of breaking that damn record. I know it, you know it, everybody that's a wrestling fan knows that. Because they know, anybody working for that company knows, the only way to break the record set by this event, the only way to probably break the standard that was set by that event is for WrestleMania to be at Cowboy Stadium, or for this year's WrestleMania to be just as good, if not better than this one, with all the hype and build that's been put into it. I mean, you got these 8 matches, and for some odd reason, each and every one of them does have a meaning. It does have a meaning, almost. I mean, the Laurinaitis long 12-man tag team match, it has meaning. Basically, the meaning behind that is the winner wants to be will be in charge of both shows. And you'll have a team of heels against a team of baby faces. The team of heels associated with Laurinaitis because they feel, hey, we associate with Laurinaitis, he'll give us what we want. You got a team of baby faces associating with Long, knowing that if he wins, he'll do the right thing. He'll give unbiased and fair opportunities. That has meaning. Then you have what? You have the, like I said, you have the Divas match. It has a story and some meaning behind it, believe it or not. Kane and Randy, even though it's a weird meaning and story behind it, it has a story. It has a built-up, if you will. It has, well, not a built-up, but it has some kind of meaning behind it. It's a weird one, but it's still there. It's a weird one, but it's still there. You got that. You got Jericho and Punk. Their meaning, the story behind that is who's the best in the world. And Jericho believing Punk ripped him off. Undertaker, Triple H. The story goes back a year, if not 2. Because now you involve HBK as the referee. It's got meaning behind it, and it's supposed to be the end of an era inside Hell in a Cell. And then, of course, you got Rock and Cena. What more can you say? So hopefully, with all that, this year's WrestleMania could be the one that sets a new standard, sets a new bar to be reached, and breaks the standard and bar that was set by this one. But can it be done? We don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Will we have to wait till next year at 29, or even wait to possibly 30 or 31 gets put in Cowboy Stadium? We don't know yet. But we do know eventually, it's coming, it's getting close, it's going to happen. That this standard, the standard that was set by this, match-wise, card-wise, story, booking it through stories and built-up, is going to get broken real soon. Very soon. Time is coming. When, where, we don't know, but to me it's very soon. Could it be this year, or will it be next year? We don't know, but it's going to be very, very soon. I feel it, and I think you all feel it as well. But will it happen this year? We don't know. I don't know. Nobody does. But will it happen? Will it occur? We'll just have to wait and see, folks. So, that's all I'm going to say. Comment down below. Thank you for watching this review of WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3, and a little bit of 4. I'll probably be back later on to talk about a few more, and I'll talk to y'all later.